Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to Enhance International's 15th in a series of webinars on building an evolving resilient enterprise. Thank you for taking the time to attend, especially in light of the continued coronavirus pandemic restrictions. We hope that you and your family are healthy and safe. My name is Jim Vries, founder of Enhance International Group, a group of over 40 consultants, consulting companies, and SaaS providers dedicated to empowering your organization's workforce by focusing on our passionate areas of expertise. Our goal is to provide collaborative, experienced thought leadership to enable organizations to deliver self-sustaining, positive margin growth. We hope that you find the information useful for you and your teams, and we welcome your questions and comments to support you in your efforts. Since March, the EIG webinar series has focused on risk appetite, risk and resiliency, agility, focus on the supply chain and the entire enterprise. We've had a webinar on the W recovery and 3 R's in a post-COVID world, respond, recover, and renew. And we've focused on establishing the building blocks to create an agile, resilient enterprise. We had our first webinar on the cybersecurity being proactively addressed with an agile framework. This is part 2 of that series. And then we've had webinars on growth portfolios, artificial intelligence, visible resilient digital enterprise, and rapid skills deployment. This recently, we had a webinar on ideation in a post-COVID world. Today, again, we're focusing on leveraging synergistic organization agility to cybersecurity to enable a resilient enterprise. Our next webinar will be on bringing speed to new product and services, as well as resilient rapid skills deployment. Today, we are fortunate to have a highly respected leader in Agile and Agility, Leila Rao, President of Agile Extended. Leila, a few words of introduction.
As Jim said, my name is Leila Rao, and I've been working in the lean and agile spaces for about 20 years, helping organizations apply this mindset and these principles to be better at whatever it is they're already doing. And so what we're calling synergistic organizational agility is the ability of an organization to sense and respond proportionately and quickly for changes in any direction, and that's especially relevant in cybersecurity.
Thank you, Leila. Before we get started, just wanted to reacquaint everybody with our poll everywhere approach for the polling questions. The best thing is to open up a browser window on your cell phone and type in the https pollev.com/Greg Schlegel 910. It's also in the chat window that you can copy and paste. So Deborah, during the webinar, please feel free to put your comments in the Q&A and or the chat window, and also respond to the polling questions. We really welcome your feedback. With that, just wanted to give a little background on how EIG, all this fits in from a strategy and execution perspective. We, the EIG, view that there's 2 geared wheels representing strategy and execution. As a company's ecosystem, the 2 geared wheels are connected by a chain, and strategy wheel is the larger of the 2 wheels. And so it moves at a slower rotation than the rear wheel that's you're driving your bicycle. And these 2 wheels are inexplicably linked and in sync, otherwise we will become derailed. Developing an agile mindset will ensure that we are successful in our journey and that no matter what we encounter. So again, the strategy wheel is composed of 3 stages: setting your vision and brand, your intrinsic value, and your operating infrastructure. Today, we'll be focusing on the execution wheel, on the visibility, operational risk management, and operational risk and resiliency. And you can look at visibility having 2 components, data and communication. And in the data, we have hard and soft data. And it's all about taking we always can use the ones and zeros, but the tough thing is taking the soft data, the people's opinions, and making good decisions with that information. So we're going to be focusing on that today. And from an old friend of ours, Albert Einstein, he says, life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you need to keep it moving, no matter what hits you. So Leila will be focusing on enabling the workforce to make better decisions, more on an execution perspective. While the driving visibility is important, it's also important to know what to do when notified, for example, cybersecurity breaches. Therefore, Leila will share with us how to better empower the workforce and to make synergistic decisions with increased visibility. Even in the post-COVID world, cybersecurity threats still need to be proactively addressed in order for our organizations to stay competitive. There's an ever greater need to communicate and make decisions quicker and smarter. Leila will take us there. Leila?
Thanks, Jim. So in order to apply this lean agile thinking or synergistic organizational agility concept to cybersecurity, we do want to go through what Agile is and how it's different from this broader organizational agility perspective. And then we want to talk about why current cybersecurity strategy does need this new approach, and then how to actually address cybersecurity challenges with organizational agility. Jim mentioned the very tactical, how do we do this? How do we make better decisions? And we'll go through all of that using what I call the compass for agility. And that will walk organizations and individuals step by step through what to see, what's missing, how to tell that story, and what to do when. So the starting point for all of this is Agile. And Agile is now way past a buzzword. It's been around for more than 20 years, but there's still a lot of myths around Agile. So to start off at a very basic level, the definition of Agile that I like is the iterative incremental delivery of predefined business value, which basically says we think we know what's important and we're going to deliver it in pieces and as soon as we can, so we can validate sooner and adjust as needed. There are any number of Agile approaches called frameworks. A lot of them, most of you probably know, Scrum or Kanban or something called SAFe or Scaled Agile. All of these frameworks take this shared Agile values and put them together in a slightly different way to address specific challenges. Most of them are IT oriented because that's where Agile had the most success and that's where it started. All of these frameworks have basically two things in common besides the shared Agile values. They all have self-organizing teams as the foundation. And they also believe in empowering individuals. So the last two are going to be a hallmark of anything that we do in Agile. And for me, this is how all these things fit together. Scrum and Kanban are how groups of people do work together. Visibility, empowerment, limiting work in progress, getting things done, great. All of those things usually fit into a broader bucket called Agile that also thinks about how do we know what we want, who should be involved. And in more complex organizations, the Agile itself is not enough. We need to think about the rest of the organization. If the Agile part isn't happening in IT, where are our business stakeholders, our customers? Where's the organization, the strategy? And that's all ties into business agility. And fundamentally, all of this sits in this vast ocean of knowledge called system thinking version of Lean. And Lean comes from Toyota and manufacturing, but also comes from healthcare, where it really is focused on how do all these things fit together to get something done? How can we balance all these competing priorities and take care of the whole? So for me, all of these fit together, and they're all kind of variations on a theme. So if you're doing good Scrum or Kanban, you're incorporating some principles of Lean and so on. To go into a bit more detail, organizational agility or business agility is the ability of an organization to understand what's happening in all of its components internally and externally and how to respond proportionally and effectively. To do this, the way I typically describe the best outcome is loosely coupled processes, tightly aligned outcomes. In other words, Are we all going in the same direction? Are we getting to the same place? But each group or component has a different way on how to get there based on their constraints, their priorities, how far away they are. So as long as the outcome is aligned, the how part tends to be more flexible. Organizational agility is very important when we don't know the answers, what we call emergent domains. New things are coming up and we don't have the time to do an annual plan, and cybersecurity certainly fits into that. And this type of organizational agility is really not about frameworks. It's not about here's how to do this. It's really about enabling end-to-end enterprise visibility to help an organization respond proportionally. How you do it, every organization is going to do it a little bit differently. So keep your eye focused on the outcome and not necessarily the how. Because it is not so prescriptive, we do have to have some foundational principles to make sure the outcome is clear and we're going towards it in the right way. So the 4 principles that I really stress are these. And the first one is the recognition that we know the least when we start something. And that something can be a new initiative, transitioning to a new way of working, a new relationship. And when we accept that we know the least at the start, it's really important to go broad before going deep. And that basically means, especially in complex organizations, aim for the end-to-end light touch rather than trying to get any one part perfectly done. Because if we focus on individual utilization, we sometimes lose track of the big picture. And the big picture is what we really want here. Helping all parts of the organization connect together to see the dots. To do this, Agile approaches really rely on cadence and time boxing. Cadence because having a sense of this thing happens here. Every day I get to do this. That cadence provides a sense of familiarity that is essential in helping us navigate change. And agility is all about navigating change. So cadence provides some touchstones, some familiarity. And time boxing is really important because when we're doing any kind of new initiative, it's layered on top of all the work that's already happening in an organization. So respecting people's time, being very aware that this is already coming on top of a full plate. So thinking about thin slices, what can we do that requires the least amount of effort from already very busy people? That's the value of time boxing. And all of these are on a bedrock of the 4th principle, which is the most important one to me. And that is recognizing the reality of human behavior. To make any of these transformational efforts stick and be sustainable, we have to make it work for the people who are part of the change, not just our customers or stakeholders. So understanding and adapting to the way they think and they work is essential to making this approach agility work. So organizational agility, as I said, it's not prescriptive, right? So what is it? It can be a lot of different things that are based on these abilities or attributes of an organization. The first is that we're working towards a healthy ecosystem. These days, to paraphrase Don, no organization is an island. We're all linked together as we're seeing what one entity does impact everybody else. So are we focused on who is the ecosystem that we're part of? What are they? Who's in it? Are we working to make it healthy for everybody? And there needs to be some sense of orchestration. When you have this many moving parts, which most organizations, ecosystems have, are they all playing from the same sheet of music? Is there someone providing some type of guidance or conduction? And that needs to be there. And the next 2 are kind of tied together. We focus so much on processes and work and data flow that we sometimes forget to track the invisible things that are happening. So making it visible, how do we think? How do we make decisions? How do we collaborate? That's really essential to making this approach work, because what we're aiming for is co-created alignment. So it's a balance of somebody, a leader, providing a vision, and everybody else saying, here's my part of it, here's mine. As we all add our pieces to it, adjusting each of our work to be in alignment, that is something that everybody needs to be a part of, and that's co-created alignment. As we do this, we're going to discover there are all the elephants in the room, the things that we have all spent time working and moving around. And it's much, much better to talk about those things because the level of effort in navigating around elephants in the room is pretty exhaustive. So whatever they are in an organization, some assumptions, past history, a challenging partnership, all of those need to be exposed and discussed and addressed proactively. And very closely to that is if we're doing all of this, visualizing the invisible, optimizing for everybody, there are going to be conflicting data points, conflicting perspectives, and always competing priorities. How do we visualize all these and make decisions? As we do this, we want to keep everybody on the same page, situational awareness. Where am I going? Where are you going? Can we see each other? Are we about to bump into each other? Are we both running off of different cliffs? All of those things you want to see and work through. Because the outcome of this type of approach would be integrated thinking. And that's not groupthink. It's more that we're all putting in our pieces, what we see, and together we're getting a 360 vision of what's around us and being able to respond to that with everybody's input. And this is a lot. I think most organizations do some of this stuff instinctively. It's really more about taking all of those ad hoc instinctual approaches and making it explicit and shared and using all of this for our decision making to make this new initiative stick.
So we welcome everyone to enter in the poll into Poll Everywhere, Greg Schlegel 910. And the first polling question is, are the majority of decisions made to benefit the shareholders, the leadership team, employees, customers, or the larger ecosystem? So in your organization or business, how do you feel the majority of the decisions are being made to benefit? So again, the shareholders, A, B, leadership team, C, employees, customers, or F, none of these. There's some other stakeholder group that we did not identify. So looks like we have some responses. So we're going to show the responses. And it looks like most of the folks are saying, at least 50% of you are saying that it's the leadership team and then split between shareholders, customers, and none of these. So it'd be interesting to speak to the person who said none of these. But very good, very interesting. Leila, any other comments?
The obvious one, no one said employees. And I think that reflects a larger reality for most organizations. Despite the fact that leaders, I think at least verbally say they're trying to, very rarely do employees feel like decisions and its impact on them are accounted for or made to benefit them. And this matches what I'm hearing generally. So not a huge surprise, but worth pointing out.
But that's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. And get to go literally out of my mouth. Yes, this is what we should be talking about. Because if you're a leader seeing this and you're thinking, well, of course I'm trying to make decisions for my people. That's in their best interest. They're not seeing it. They're not feeling it. And we have to address that.
So all I can do is quote back when I was a young boy at GE and Jack Welch being asked, who do you work for, in front of a bunch of business analysts on one of the major networks. And they asked him that, and he said point blankly, I don't work for any of you guys. I work for the employees. I'm just here because you guys want me here. So that's what you would want in a leader, to say, I'm here for the employees and getting the best out of my employees and helping them be successful. Beautiful. All right, so that's good to end with that. And I'll be covering this next section on why current cybersecurity tactics need Leila's synergistic organizational agility. So we'll start with a quote from Brittany Homerzine. And Brittany is a director of cyber threats operations at Cardinal Health and a board member in Kansas at the Kansas City metropolitan area. So she has a fantastic quote that Leila found. As cybersecurity leaders, we have to create our message of influence because security is a culture, and you need the business to take place and be part of the security culture. Wow, those are big words. And Leila, you have anything to add to that?
Yes, and it ties very much back to what we have learned from agility. In order to make an agile way of working work in an organization, it has to be part of business. It can't be siloed. You can't have agile happening in one place and everybody else does their work as normal. We have to be able to integrate agile or cybersecurity into the rest of the organization, be part of the business value proposition.
Excellent. So we know we need to make it part of our culture. And there's another poll here of top 10 global risks. This is before the pandemic, because obviously everything is being controlled by the pandemic and the restrictions of that pandemic that we're encountering right now. But before that, Alliance, one of the premier risk companies, regularly assesses 1,900 risk professionals from 80 countries globally. So, if you want to find your local, how it is in your local area, it's fantastic. If you look at that link that's in the upper right-hand corner, they can bring it right down to your local area and give you what your top most important business risks and percentage. And you'll see there, just about in every country, that cyber attacks is number 2 or number 1 in just about every area around the world. And so these cyber attacks are consistently identified, and furthermore, areas that you need to really watch out is in your supply chain. We talked about that a few weeks ago or months ago on cyber attacks in these supply chain area. So Leila will be going to provide us a fresh look on how to address the challenging catastrophic event that can cost companies millions and millions of dollars. And so, cybersecurity, some of the root causes of them, as you can see, is how we interact with our computers. They're everything from weak and stolen credentials, malware, social engineering, insider threats. But what you see in common from all of these is that there's the human interaction with that. And as software cannot prevent 100% certainty that you're going to be able to block yourself from these hackers from gaining your access to your system, we need more than ever to have our organization be aware of these threats with confident action. And from Verizon, they found that 2/3 of the business leaders feel that the cybersecurity risks are increasing, and half of the breaches featured hacking, malware, and phishing, and or social engineering. So it's prevalent, and it's costing us a lot of money. The average cost of disruption for any risk event is about $350,000 per event. That's back in 2014, so I imagine that's a higher number today. And each year, from the insurance agencies, they say every company encounters 11 of these. So you can just count on $3 to $4 million out the door due to risk events, and cybersecurity being the biggest impact. So a company needs to be able to figure out how to absorb these risk events, within the profit and loss center, your P&L, to eliminate and mitigate and reduce the impact of these risk events. So it's here, it's big. So, compliance is not enough. Cybersecurity is most often viewed as compliance-based approach, and the cost of doing business, as we just said, at least a couple $1 million a year, and it's going to cost you. We have to move it from. It might not be seen as a strategic value, but we got to move beyond cybersecurity compliancy. But if we perform a checklist approach, as we see here on the left, we will meet an external standard, but it's really not going to impact our people or culture. And then as we move to the cost of business, then it just comes down to a cost center rather than a strategic valued asset. So from a chess point of view, we can try that, but we need to find a way that we can transform something that's being a cost into an asset. Success can be achieved if we connect it back to our overall business and our people. If we do that, we can uncover the strategic value. If we focus on the compliance-based approach, we will not be able to adapt to changes that are happening in real time, putting us in these very tough situations. That is why it is really important to have cybersecurity approach and procedures to be adaptive, based on our people, so that we can react and connect it back to the organization's most significant strategic value proposition. It's only when cybersecurity becomes part of who we are as an organization that we are able to address it. So next, we're going to start another survey on how comfortable do you feel with your current compliance program in limiting the impact of a cyber attack. Do you feel very comfortable, neither comfortable or uncomfortable, or very uncomfortable? So we have those 5 different choices there. We have a few results in, so we'll go ahead and show those. And what we see is kind of scary that nobody feels at least comfortable that has responded thus far. Everybody's either on the fence or don't know or uncomfortable. Leila, any comments on this?
No, I think it's reflecting reality. Cybersecurity is just such a arena where no one has the answers. Very few people have the answers. We're all kind of learning as we go along, which again is why you need to have this agile mindset, because this is a definition of emergent domain. Nobody has the answers. We don't know exactly what's coming up. So we have to incorporate everybody's perspective to give ourselves the best chance to react and respond effectively.
Thank you, Leila. And thanks to everyone for responding to our surveys. It really helps a lot. Thank you. Leila?
So we talked about why, and the survey just made very clear, why do we need to have organizational agility be a viable approach for cybersecurity? The reason we need it is most cybersecurity approaches are very much compliance-based, as Jim and I discussed, right? So the evolution is going from compliance to targeted, which is, what does this organization need? What do our people need? Great. It's still a one-way relationship. We want to aim for synergistic so that all parties have a voice in the conversation and are invested in the outcome, because this recognizes the sometimes inconvenient reality that people have their own opinions and systems have a life of their own. And that's the reality for most organizations. So if you're a cybersecurity professional, going from compliance to targeted, it's absolutely a step in the right direction because you're making it work for your organization, but it's still being driven by you. To move towards synergistic approach, it has to be co-created. So the cyber professionals provide their input, business stakeholders, agility people, they all put in their perspectives, and together we create an approach and outcome that really works for that particular organization and the people in it. Because ultimately what we want, and goes back to Brittany's quote, an effective cybersecurity response is a culture of awareness and knowledge and proactiveness. And that means it just has to be part of who we are. And how do we do this? And it really goes back to integrating your cybersecurity strategy with organizational agility to create a resilient enterprise. And this same equation applies to any other initiative or change you want to make. Cybersecurity is a unique challenge, but it has some things in common with other organizational challenges. So by reusing this formula, we build a sense of organizational, yes, we know how to do this. We have some building blocks that we can use to address this challenge. And that way, it's not something new for everybody each time. So now we're going to the really kind of tactical execution level details of, okay, great, all this sounds good. Where do I start? How do I continue? And that's using the compass for agility. Approaching or integrating the compass with this organizational agility approach means that we start from a partnership perspective. We invite other people in. So whether you're a business stakeholder or a cybersecurity professional or an Agile coach, you want to involve everybody else in this effort. Extend the invitation for them to be partners, not just to do what you want them to do, but to be part of the creation. And in order to make this stick, gamification is a tremendous way of helping everybody see the value and change their behavior accordingly. Human beings, we're pretty competitive sometimes. And seeing what somebody else is doing and seeing, hey, I can earn that next badge if I do this, motivation works, so use it. In all of these approaches, we have to look to the future. It's not just about responding to the risk that is directly impacting us. Because if we do only that, we're going to miss the next one. So scanning the horizon in all directions. What's happening? What's changing? What is different than the last time we scanned this? That's a really essential approach to the synergistic agility mindset. And scanning the horizon also looks at your people. Who have we not talked to? Who's not part of this conversation? Because ultimately, if you're doing all of those things, your cybersecurity approach is a strategic asset for the organization. The ROI for this approach goes way beyond just more effective approach to cybersecurity risks. It spills over into other parts of your organizational skill set. Resiliency, innovation, responsiveness, empowerment, all of those things can be part of the ROI. So yes, you're getting better at a cybersecurity culture, but you're also gaining all of those additional benefits for the same amount of work. And that's where we want to go towards. The way I do this is called the Compass for Agility. This is a way of co-creating organizational change in 90 days. And it is based on Agile principles of time boxing and cadence and iterative, which means the 90-day approach involves 3 cycles around this. And each cycle is about 30 days and goes through 5 steps. Ideation, which is where are we going? Where's the vision? And not just as a blue sky vision, but if we achieve this vision, what does it mean for us, for me? That's the value proposition for ideation. And then we balance that with identification, which is the current reality. Where are we now? It's great to know that we want to go somewhere, but essential to know is that somewhere is 5 miles away metaphorically or 500 miles. You want to know that. How much is the gap? And that takes us to intake. Intake is where we look at the gap between the vision and the reality and also understand our capacity for change. Because whether it is improved cybersecurity, increased resilience, or agility, these change initiatives are happening along with any number of other initiatives in the organization. So what is our organizational capacity for change, for more change? Is it 5%, 10%, 25%? We have to know that. And that's how you prioritize based on both the gap as well as your current ability to absorb more change. Once you have that prioritized at the strategic level, execution, operation level, whatever your priorities are, then you move into inaction. So the first 3 steps are really more about discovery, and they each take place within half a day to 2 days. Inaction goes the full 3 weeks, at least, of your cycle, because this is when you're putting things into action. You're getting things done. If you're saying we want to do this, you're going to get that thing done. And this is where the traditional lean, agile approaches work very well. At the end of the 3-week period, we're going to introspection, where we look back not just how we did things in ideation, did we get our things done, what did we miss, but all the way back to was our vision appropriate? And notice that that's appropriate, not correct, because it's not about right or wrong. It's about learning as we go through this. Did we do a good job understanding our current state? Did we miss something, or did something change? If our current state involved a key person who's very good at what they do and that person leaves, what changes? Do we prioritize the right things? And then, yes, how did we do it? When the second iteration starts at the 31st day, you'll incorporate all of those lessons learned from the first 30 days experience and apply it to make it better. And then each of these steps has 3 techniques you can use. Which one you choose is always going to be contextual. If you reuse the same techniques, you're going to build fluency. If you use different techniques, you're going to learn something new. That's a balance every organization can figure out as they go through this 90-day approach. And going into more specifically on cybersecurity. If we're doing ideation for cybersecurity, we want a co-created holistic outcome. So, do we have this vision for cybersecurity? And most organizations I work with certainly have one. So the second question that's actually even more important is, who has been part of this vision creation? Did you have a consulting group come in and create it? Did you have a cybersecurity expert write your vision for you? What did those happen? When those things happen, those scenarios happen, it doesn't often integrate with the rest of the organization's risk approach. So do you have a risk profile? Do you have a risk appetite? What is your organization's general response to risk, general sense of risk? What do you think of it? Are you think of it very aggressive on risk, we respond very fast? Or do you wait and see if something is serious enough to react to? No right and wrong, just where are you on this continuum? When you're doing your cybersecurity vision, has there been any attempt at looking at your ecosystem first? The scanning the horizon, what tools do you have? Where are you now? What's part of your ecosystem? Complex organizations, the sheer number of systems and tools and software and people and controls are staggering. Have we accounted for all of these? And fundamentally, is your cybersecurity vision technology-centric or is it behavior-centric? If you have considered and thought through all these questions, then you probably have a pretty good cybersecurity outcome in mind, which really is essential to getting us started. What I see in most organizations is it comes from the outside. There is an industry standard, and NIST is an excellent standard. It is an industry standard for some good reasons. A lot of organizations I work with say, yes, we're going to try to follow NIST. That's a good place to start. But if you just do that, it's going to be siloed. Not all of your people are going to know what NIST is or frankly care about it. Let's just say you're a technology organization who wants to incorporate NIST. Build the NIST elements into your requirements and your backlog for all of your other software and cultural changes. Help everybody understand why this matters. If someone's building a new software, a new system, have it built in somewhere where they automatically, before it gets approved to go to production, it gets added to your asset management inventory. Rather than that system not saying, wait, where is this new software coming from? The more you can build these interactions into your existing work, the more effective your cybersecurity framework is going to be, okay? So all of these elements, break them down, pass them along to your teams and your organizations, let everybody incorporate elements of this into their work, rather than having your cybersecurity vision be something distinct that a few people own. The way to do this, a good technique is called an impact map. Impact map is often used in product ideation and discovery, but also ties in very well when we want to do something that impacts a lot of people. So for example, once you decide your vision, think through who are all of the people who need to be involved in this. And then for each person, what are their current behaviors? And the last column, what do you want to change? So as an example, you know that you need leaders to be invested in cybersecurity. You want them to understand the ROI and support employee training. How could you help them understand ROI? How about lunch and learns, or having the CISO present to a board so all the leaders are hearing at once why this is so important? So this is a way of thinking through how to create a holistic, co-created vision. The next step is identification, and as we said, this is the current state. So how mature is your cybersecurity plan? Do we have one? Who's involved in assessing the landscape? What's happening in terms of cybersecurity? Does everybody else get to see it? Or is it invisible somewhere? Does leadership see this results of the analysis? Are they incorporating this into their business decisions? Are they not? And fundamentally, the cybersecurity work is happening, data collection, analysis, all of those things. Are they connected back to the business? Are there business level action items coming out of this? So for example, if we do a cyber risk report, do we then say, anyone who's a new product owner, here's some things you want to think about before you create your new product to help you get set for cybersecurity requirements? That's what we mean by ensuring that the action items are continued from a business perspective. One of the ways I do that is called a kaleidoscope, which is just a very visual way of showing how lots of different work efforts or work streams are working towards the shared objective. So let's just say if you're a technology organization and you have all these different streams developing products and services and maintaining infrastructure, maybe cybersecurity is its own stream, or it's integrated into everybody else's. So because we're Agile, we use Post-its and sticky dots and all those things. Maybe every one of these different color stickies has a white dot that says this is cybersecurity. You just want to make sure that it's visible and shared and part of everybody's thinking. So once we've got this vision and reality, then we actually have to say, okay, what can we do? What are the options in terms of cybersecurity improvement of maturity that we can do? And part of this is looking at your data if you have it. What's the story being told of your data? I'm a big believer in data tells a story, but probably not the whole story. So what's missing? Whose perspective is not in here? Based on this data and talking to people and gathering perspectives, we want to be able to reach or to identify our priorities for the first 30 days. What are we going to try to do? And you typically want to do priorities at the operational level, which means the cybersecurity teams are going to be doing X, Y, and Z. The tactical level, maybe they're going to be helping some other teams do something. And the strategic level where you have leadership and business owners taking actions. And a way to do that is through an experience map, especially if your organization is relatively new to cybersecurity. You want to be able to take your business and technology stakeholders through the cybersecurity process and help them walk through each other's shoes, through customer shoes. What does it feel like? What do they hear? What do they feel? This builds empathy on a shared experience, which really increases everyone else's willingness to absorb new responsibilities and change their behavior. And this is really, really important because the reality of cybersecurity is very technology-centric. There are a ton of tools that do all these core elements of an effective cybersecurity strategy, but they're all technology-focused. And we want to be able to incorporate this technology into people and business and behavior. And once we have these priorities, we actually have to get things done. And that's where Agile really excels, right? Being able to go from we're doing all these things to we've achieved these things in this 30 days or less. And here's what we're going to do in the next 30 days and being able to meet that commitment. So in order to have the most effective approach to getting things done for cybersecurity, you want to make sure, again, as I said, the cybersecurity action items are not just owned by a small group of people. They're owned and integrated into the business backlog or any other work activity system that you might have. What we want to be able to see at this level is what is the ratio of planned work, in progress work, and done work? Is it visible? And we can do that through information radiator, which we'll talk about next. Ultimately, what we want with the information radiator is seeing what's happening percentage-wise, as well as what percentage of the vision has been realized. So if you're looking at this information radiator, the potential actions could be, here are X number of things we want to achieve our vision. Okay, what percent of them are prioritized and understood, your to-do column? And then from there, what is your capacity? What are you actually doing? What's being reviewed and what's done? And as you're doing all these things, the other two things I recommend capturing is findings, because if you're doing this process effectively, you're going to learn new things. And capturing them as you go along is very essential to learning from it, as we'll discuss in the next step. Something else that's often needed is called pending, which literally means we started working on this or waiting on somebody else to do something And that's just a reality of complex organizations, because as much as we try to ensure everyone's there, we miss something else happens. So being aware of what's impending is very helpful from a delivery perspective. The final step of the compass is introspection. So if you're doing any kind of Agile work, you're familiar with retrospectives, which are an ability and approach towards inspecting and adapting. I do switch from inspection to introspection because I think it's helpful to take the focus off of compliance to external standards and say, how could we do better? Looking at ourselves and not being assessed by an external stakeholder is really important. The best recommendation for effective introspection approach would be to preset a cadence. So with the compass approach, typically every 30 days, we end with an introspection activity. It could be a retrospective, it could be something else, but there's always that introspection activity where we look at the previous 4 steps that we did. And we really want to be able to review any assessments we made, any new technology purchases we made, what new capabilities have we developed as an organization. And we want to continually update your cybersecurity portfolio to reflect these lessons learned. At a general level, introspection is about learning better to be better. And this is the continual journey for all of us. One of the most common retrospective templates is called a starfish retrospective. And you can see where the name comes from. It's basically 5 steps: start, stop, more, less, and keep. And we get everybody to give targeted feedback in these 5 areas. So I typically say 3 to 5 minutes for each slice. So 5 minutes, what new activities or actions can we start? What do we want to stop? This is a very good way of getting targeted feedback from a number of people in a very short amount of time. You can do it in as little as 30 minutes. I try to usually have about 90 minutes so we can have some discussion and allow more things to populate and begin the learning process. So that was a lot. We walked through cybersecurity, agility, why those 2 things are integrated and how to make it happen. The general principles I would say are really important is to understand that technology alone cannot provide an effective response against cyber risks. You need it, it helps, it's just never going to be enough by itself. This whole concept of synergistic organizational agility is applicable in any domain or any problem area where uncertainty and emergence are a reality. We've been talking for about 25 years about VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environments. This is not anything new. It's just that it's now applicable to most of us, most of the time. So this approach to agility is pretty much applicable anywhere where things are changing and we don't know what's happening. The Compass for Agility provides an approach towards achieving organizational agility. I've used it for agile transformations, for culture change, and now for creating a more responsive cybersecurity culture. And the Compass is a way to integrate technology and people in a very time-sensitive way, because technology amplified by human interactions and human intuition is the most effective response strategy for cybersecurity or any other challenges that organizations face. So Jim, do we have any questions?
Yeah, let me look here. I think we start having some questions come in. I'm going to just, while those questions are coming in, I'll just remind everybody that we have webinars coming up on November 3rd, and we'll be sending out notifications very soon. We'll have a fireside chat on building the visible, resilient digital ecosystem, and upcoming webinars on artificial intelligence. And again, all the webinars and this webinar will be posted on consultingeig.com coming up. So I do see a question coming in. I think this is from Dan. He says, why do we need more than standard Agile? Why do we need more tools, more methods? We got so many tools. Leila, help me out. How do I sell this?
Good point. So for example, for starters, if you're doing Agile, it's not about tools. It's about frameworks, which yes, it's still kind of limiting. If you're doing Scrum, Kanban, Safe, whatever, it helps. it's just not going to be enough because most of those frameworks are built on some assumptions that may not always be applicable. So for example, Scrum is a great framework. It's also very much team-based. And yes, you can scale Scrum up to a certain degree, but ultimately it was designed to help small groups of people do their work better. Shifting from Agile to Agility says that we've done Agile, it's helped us, and now we're discovering more things that we need. It's a very organic process. Just about every organization starts with frameworks. There's a concept called Shuhari, which basically says, initially you follow the rules, then we basically start questioning the rules, and ultimately we don't need the rules anymore because we've integrated the behavior. So going from Agile framework to Agility is that you already internalized the behavior that the frameworks are trying to instill, and now you've gone beyond that.
So that probably leads pretty well into the second question is when you have, this is from Greg, got to give him props. From Greg, he says, you know, how do you know agility is going well? You know, past the 90 days, you make it through the first cycle. How many of these cycles do we need to do? Is this 90 days for the next 5 years, 2 years, 1 year? How does the organization transform so it is part of the culture in the DNA of the business?
So the 90 days are going to get you to a point where you've learned the techniques and the tools. You're going to have to keep doing it more than that because if you don't, human behavior reverts back to the norm. So what will happen is the first 90 days we're very much focused on a particular problem, in this case, cybersecurity. Once we've maintained the baseline, then we can do a little bit more lighter weight approach where we take on less change. It's still the same 90-day process because that will pretty much run infinitely. But you're going to be taking on less and less new work, or you're going to be shifting the focus to a new thing. So let's just say you've got your baseline cybersecurity strategy set, and then you're realizing one particular business component really is not getting it. They're pretty far away where you want them to be. So maybe you shift the focus of the compass approach to that particular component and let the rest float a little bit. So the target of the compass approach may change depending on pain points and other things that emerge, but there's always going to be a flow throughout to help organizations stay on track. It certainly is going to take you less effort the longer you've been doing it. Ultimately, it tends to be a little bit of like check-in periodically. Are we still on track? Are we okay? The level of effort goes from maybe like 30% initially to maybe about 5% at the end of the year. But it is always going to be part of you because, again, it's the way you think, it's the way you behave, it's the way an organization checks in with itself to make sure that the behaviors that are working are still working and nothing is missing.
So,
and how do you know it's, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, finish.
How do you know it's working? Is if you're doing it. That is a measure of success for the compass. As long as you're following this, as long as you're doing the techniques of the right cadences, and it is part of your approach, you are going to be successful because if nothing else, the compass holds up a mirror to what's working and what's not working.
So this is a tool to execute your strategy. So you may have 5, 10 initiatives that you identified, and then you use this one by one in each applicable organization. And you may end up doing it again a year and a half later to reinvigorate it or bring it to the next level. Am I thinking about that right?
A little bit. I probably phrase it more as this is the way in which we're going to make decisions, look at ourselves, and continue to improve. What initiatives or what efforts get targeted for each 30 or 90 days are going to vary depending on the ebb and flow of an organization, what changes, what leadership priorities are. But that cadence and framework approach stays the same. The best way to think about it is the compass is a pipeline. What you put through the pipeline is going to change depending on where you are. And sometimes, yeah, you are going to go back and revisit things. Not because it didn't work the first time, but because it's a maintenance effort. It's
Sure.
Less effort, but we still have to go back and do that.
Yeah, bring it to the next level of performance. If you might have brought it to a certain level, and now you're going to bring it to that next level. But meanwhile, you're doing it performing the compass in other areas that provide strategic value for your company. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Great. We have one final question from Mike. Where's that? And Patty here. So it says, how do you convince cybersecurity folks on Agile, on an Agile way of thinking? What's been your experience there in working with the cybersecurity community?
I will tell you it's painful to start with because the two domains don't coexist or play very nicely in most places. Apply the compass approach, extend the invitation, get to know people. Go to any cybersecurity learning environments that would have good cybersecurity programs tend to have outreach programs. They tend to have information sessions. Go to those things. Get to know those people. Invite them to your Agile learning sessions. Building relationships before you need them is very, very helpful. It starts with information sharing. Once you have that baseline information sharing, then you can build towards more of a trusting relationship. Hey, would you like to be part of this? Could I be part of your effort? I'd like to understand more. It is going to be invitation. It is going to be a partnership approach, but it is very possible to get to a collaborative relationship where both parties learn from the other. And that's a lot of my job as an Agile coach who works with cybersecurity entities. Get to know them, get them to know me, get them to understand what Agile is, make sure I understand their language so that I can show them very pragmatically, how does applying Agile help them get more from their efforts? All of the cybersecurity people I've worked with have generally been, frankly, pretty brilliant. They really care about this topic. They want to help everybody else understand why this is so important. And Agile is a way of doing that. If we can make that connection, they get on board and everybody gets increased ROI.
What I heard underneath of that, Leila, is a passion. Everybody is passionate about what they're working on. Agile helps bring that passion together. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you're applying Agile thinking, you're basically putting all these passionate people together, helping them get more from each other rather than fighting amongst each other in terms of which outcome is more important and which behavior comes first. Shared prioritization for a shared outcome.
Well, that's a great way to end it. Thank you, Leila. And thank you all for joining us today. And I hope you found this webinar beneficial. Again, we have our webinar coming up where we'll have the EIG team on November 3rd on digital ecosystems. And we'll talk more on the data side. But of course, it's not just data, ones and zeros. It's about the people and aligning the people to the data to make better decisions. That's what any successful organization brings to the party. So with that, Leila, any closing comments?
No, just a very general awareness that this is all new to a lot of people. Agile, agility, cybersecurity, all of these are fairly new concepts. So there's some good resources on where to start. And most important is start learning and start applying and learn from that application.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day, evening, and morning.